We have come a long way with adjusting the American school system in ways that give every student the fair opportunity to succeed. It was not always like this, though. Throughout the years, many cases have been hashed out in court to fight for our children's rights. It has taken decades, but we are finally able to provide ELL students with bilingual education programs that include specially trained teachers as well as a support personnel. This has changed everything for these students and will hopefully only continue to get better. Here are a few cases that have altered history and got us to where we are today. Myers versus Nebraska, 1923. In these years, it was common for German immigrant communities to run private schools that taught in both German and English. In 1919, though, the Simon Act made it illegal to teach foreign language to people under the age of 13 or 8th grade. Many Americans feared immigrants to be able to teach and speak their own native tongue. However, this obviously caused issues for young children in education. They were not allowed to learn in their own language and therefore did not learn much, as they could not understand English. It began to be argued that this was prejudice toward immigrants. This decision did not give language minorities additional rights and privileges, but simply ensured that laws not be used as a rationale for denying them the same rights accorded to others. Sandra Del Val, 2003. Farrington versus Tokushige, 1927. In an attempt to restrict Chinese and Japanese languages in Hawaii, the state passed a law that strictly limited the time, resources, and curriculum used for teaching in the native language of the students. People against this law claimed that it was a violation of the Fifth Amendment. As a result, the court offered further protections of after-school community language programs. Steinbach versus Mohawk Kekok Po, 1947. The wars were still fresh, unfortunately, keeping people frightened of German and Japanese immigrants. These two languages almost completely vanished from school classrooms. Americans were scared that the instruction of these languages might cause citizens to question their loyalty to the United States. There was agreement that minorities should be Americanized, but they also have a right to offer private languages classes so that their children can keep their native language alive. This is why private language classes are still protected by the Constitution today. United States versus Texas, 1971. Texas wanted to implement more bilingual educational programs that would benefit all students. Texas also believed that this would benefit American culture as a whole. Mexican Americans would be able to understand and adopt American ways easier if everyone was on the same team. Allowing these bilingual programs to be taught to all students, including Anglo-Americans, would make this transition a lot easier for everyone. The court ordered the district to create a plan and implement language programs that would help Mexican American students learn English and adjust to American culture and also help Anglo students learn Spanish. San Antonio Independent School District versus Rodriguez, 1973. Residents became angry when they saw a predominantly white school receiving more funding than their school of mostly Mexican American students. This seemed unjust to them and a violation of the 14th Amendment. Poor districts meant inequality for students and especially ELL students. The court argued that, indeed, if there is no constitutional right to an education under the 14th Amendment, as Del Val points out, there is clearly no constitutional right to a bilingual education. Lau versus Nicholas, 1974. In San Francisco, Chinese American students were being placed in mainstream classes and forced to sink or swim. The San Francisco United School District argued that this was equal treatment, as this is exactly what the English-speaking students were provided with. Justice William Douglas disagreed, arguing, "We know that those who do not understand English are certain to find their classroom experiences wholly incomprehensible and in no way meaningful." The court decided that it was unjust to throw in ELL students to a mainstream classroom without understanding the language. It was then realized that bilingual education programs needed to be put in place to ensure a fair education for all students. Serna versus Portales, 1974. It was argued under Title IX of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, or national origin in any program that receives federal funding. It was first decided that these families were being selfish and asking too much. The court argued the funds were just not there to accommodate ELL students. The parents of these students were obviously outraged. The case was later appealed, and it was made clear that schools could not ignore the language and educational needs of ELL students. Aspira versus New York, 1975. Aspira was a group created by Antonia Pantoja in 1961. Aspira was fought in court against the Board of Education of the City of New York in 1975. They petitioned the court to implement more bilingual programs where they were needed. They argued that this was the only way for Puerto Rican students to receive a fair and equal education. Aspira fought for not only standard bilingual education programs, but also support personnel to be provided to each of these students. The case resulted in the Aspira Consent Decree, which mandates transitional bilingual programs for Spanish surnamed students, found to be more proficient in Spanish than English. Rios versus Reed, 1978. Parents of a Puerto Rican student argued that the bilingual education program in place was inadequate. They explained that the teachers were not properly trained to be bilingual educators, and that these students were not in an environment that they could succeed in. It was argued that the system was essentially setting these students up to fail. Though the court issued no specific solutions, the Federal Office of Civil Rights came in to ensure that the district made improvements. Castañeda versus Pickard, 1981. The Castañeda family accused the Raymondville School District of not meeting the needs of its ELL students. They felt schools were being segregated and Mexican Americans were being grouped at one school while mostly white students were being grouped at another. The Castañeda family felt as if the white students were getting a better chance at success. The first time around, Judge Robert O'Connor ruled in favor of the school district. However, the second time around, the court ruled in favor of the Mexican American families. A major outcome of this case is a three-pronged test to determine whether schools are taking appropriate action to address the needs of ELLs as required by the EEOA. I hope this has allowed for things to click a little bit more and shed some light on why we use the educational system that we use today. Thank you so much for watching.